Hi, today is Tuesday, May 29th, and we're at Dinosaur National Monument. We've been touring southern Utah over the last almost 3 weeks with my wife Bonnie and my daughter Jenny. Jenny's no longer with us. She had to fly back home to near Washington, D.C., go to work tomorrow. So on our way back to Wisconsin, we decided to stop from Salt Lake City here at Dinosaur National Monument, which is on the border between Utah and Colorado. We are camped in the campground at the monument, and we're right down by the Green River. I'll show you that here shortly. The Green River is flowing rapidly today. Seems to be about the height that it normally is located at. We just got done setting up our camper. We're about to go to the visitor center and check out what's going on there. But certainly the lifeblood of this area is this river. And downstream here a little bit we've got some rapids. Nothing significant, but there are rapids. Well, those certainly look like sandstone formations here by the river and the campground. Presently we are above the campground area, and we have those unique sandstone rock formations across the river. And as I pan here to the right, the campground will come into view. And the irrigated land across the river is private property. It's a ranch. It's been in existence for quite some time, and there's a creek running past it there and the Green River, so it's had plenty of water in which to irrigate. And if I have my bearings right, I think our trailer right down in there. We're going to take a short hike to some petroglyphs found in this hill, this rockside sandstone. It'll be right over there. These are petroglyphs and pictoglyphs that were carved and painted into the rock face here of this shelter by the Fremont people. It's thought that they were done approximately 1,000 years ago. So you have some on the wall right here. Got some in front right there. Bighorn sheep and some people. Over here we have all kinds of different people, all up and down. This ridge is referred to as Split Mountain because the Green River has split it, and we need to go to some other stops in order to find out why it took the route through the mountain rather than around it. I'm going to assume that there was softer rock around it that has been eroded away, that forced the river to go through and carve down into this rock. It is a type of sandstone. At this position in our auto tour, the information says that sandstone, of course, is laid down in horizontal beds, and over time tectonic forces will cause the land to uplift, causing it to buckle and become a dome, as you see here in this shot. The Green River, it turns out, is younger than these rocks, so something else had carved the path of the river earlier. Before us is Split Mountain. In my statement earlier saying that the river had its path determined earlier by soft rock was right. There was some soft shale that was buried over top of this harder sandstone and limestone. And then the river was, once it was in its banks, it couldn't leave it. And then it began to cut through this harder sandstone. And as we go to our right here, you see the color of the rock changing. The red is older sandstone. Some of it is Navajo sandstone, which is very common in Grand Canyon. And below us, you'll see there's a group campground in this area. We're not camped in this one. This is different. This is the group campground. It's now a little before 7 o'clock in the evening. I'm going to go on a hike. It's called the Sound of Silence hike. And I bought this trusty trail guide. Spent a full $1 on it. So hopefully as we go along on this trail, I can give you $1 worth of information. Before I actually get started on the trail hike and the first information post, I want to show you the beginning of the hike. Unfortunately, later in the afternoon, I'm shooting toward the setting sun, but this does give you a pretty good representation of the landform that's around here at the beginning of this trail. This is just a short way in to the part from the visitors center. It's mainly sandstone. As I reached the #1 signpost, saw 2 jackrabbits. One ran away to the left. Oh, the other one just left too. Scared them away. Oh well, let's go see what the signpost says. Trail guide says I should be doing this hike in the morning, and the light would be helping here. But we're facing the west right now, and this low mound in front of me is referred to as frontier. It is a shale, and it's the youngest rock here in this region. Coming over here, next area is Moray. Then this higher region right here is Dakota. The high point there is called Dakota. And then going a little bit farther, this region right here in the middle is Cedar Mountain. And then we come to Morrison. This region is called the Stump. And Estrada here in the center. Come a little farther, you see the red area there. That's Carmel. And over here, this rounded one here in the center here is called the Nugget. And it says here that this is the oldest of those areas that we just took a look at, going from about 98 million years ago until about 200 million years ago. And of course, this happens due to uplift and the bending of the earth. So this rock over here was formed on top of this rock, and this rock was formed on top of this rock all the way along here. And it was pushed up and bent by forces from interior of the earth through tectonic forces. I've reached location #2. It's this wash here in front of us. And of course the west is just loaded with these dry washes. Another rabbit. Actually, when I came up here, there was 2 of them bounding away. The information here is talking about how the landscape is constantly being changed. Because the wash looks like this today, after a powerful rain, it won't look like this after that. So constant change here because of weather and the forces of climate. The third post is by this huge cottonwood tree. Well, it's really branched out, but it says, how can it be growing here? Well, of course, it's because of this dry wash that water soaks in after rains and can sustain this large tree. But you notice that you look either side of the tree, you don't see any other large trees. You have these cedars, perhaps some pinyon pine, but mainly look like cedars. You got these desert shrubs that can get by with very little water. But this cottonwood, it needs water all the time. So there is a relatively close to the surface source of water here because of this dry wash. The fourth stop on our hike is this earthen wall here on the corner of this wash. This, of course, because it's relatively soft, gets washed away. And look, see, if you take a look at these holes, I'm not positive, but if this was Wisconsin, those would be homes for birds. But it could be something else in this region of the world. I also want you to take a look at this rock right here. Notice this is sandstone. Sandstone, of course, the layers should be horizontal. And here they're vertical. And of course they're vertical because of the powerful forces in the interior of the earth that has forced this uplift in this region. And now the layers are vertical rather than horizontal. Number 5 shows the nuggets. These are these rounded sandstone features that we've been seeing from a distance, and now we're in amongst them. These are examples of cross-bedded sandstone, meaning you've got ancient sand dunes that blew in one direction, and then as the sand dunes changed, the wind blew in other directions, or because of the face of the sand dune, the sand had to go off in a different direction. When it did so, it tended to crisscross. So you've got all these different ways or directions that the sand seems to be flowing in. Cross-bedded sandstone. This stop is not a part of the trail guide, but I want to show it to you to give you an example of the erosion that occurs in these washes. In front of us is a slump. You can see on a higher elevation here in the walls of the dry wash where the soil has been washed down into this delta-like shaped formation. And of course, as the water comes rushing through here with the next major flash flood, it will wash a lot of this away and do more undercutting, and some of these other walls will slump just like that. I think we surprised each other. These ants, like ants all around the world, have been busy. And they still are. The 6th stop talks about the vegetation of the region, how it changes in elevation. You've got these cottonwood trees that are growing down in the wash where the soil is deeper and there's more moisture. You come up the slope a little bit. And then we have greasewood and sagebrush shrubs. And then we get up a little bit farther, we have the juniper trees. This stop on our hike discusses this cliff wall here above the wash. It talks about the peregrine falcons and how they almost became extinct due to the effects of the use of the insecticide DDT. When that was banned, they have come back by protecting areas like this, making best nesting areas actually inside cities and places like that. And now they say the population is stable. I have discovered that these are pack rat holes. Here at location number 10, the pamphlet talks about the formation of the landscape. The noticeable curve of Split Mountain is part of an anticline, an upward fold of rock. While Split Mountain arcs up, other features seem to sag. The sags are called synclines. The underlying roller coaster of rock formed when formerly flat sedimentary layers were compressed and wrinkled. Forces related to the building of the Rocky Uinta Mountains 70 to 40 million years ago caused the uplifting, tilting, faulting, and folding of rock layers. While some layers erode into mounds, others stick out as ridges. Erosion reveals not only a variety of shapes but also an array of colors. If we look back in this direction, where I just came from, we see the reds and the lighter colors here. The reds, of course, are deposits of iron that have rusted, and they also cause the yellow colors that found up a little bit farther higher, a little higher in elevation there. This is known as the racetrack. The lanes are made up of Triassic-aged Moenkopi and chenille formations, seemingly wrapped around the corner. These rust-colored rocks are rich in iron and sometimes called Jurassic red beds. Iron is also responsible for many of the yellow, orange, and greenish tints of the rock layers in this region. And we have come back to Split Mountain. Site number 11 wants to talk about plants again. What we're looking at now is blue-green algae, lichens, mosses, green algae, microfungi, bacteria. It takes many, many years for this to become established. And then if it's disrupted, it takes many years for it to become reestablished. And this is the basis of all life here in the desert at this microbiology level. So we're constantly being reminded to stay on the trail and stay off of this micro vegetation, because it's easily disrupted and takes a long time to become reestablished, and so vital to the desert. Besides that, talks about this plant right here. Excuse me. The pamphlet also discusses these plants that locate here in front of the camera. It's a form of ephedra, also referred to as Mormon tea. It makes an invigorating tea. Important browsing plant for the elk and the deer, especially in the wintertime. I've been walking quite a while now here on the side of the hill. Got the rocky outcroppings here to my right. The dry wash here to my left. So a little bit of up and a little bit of down as I'm going to our next spot. Hasn't been difficult. Site 12 wants to talk about the Utah juniper tree. It's the most common tree in Utah. It covers 1/5 of the land area of the state. Seems like it can grow anywhere, even in solid rock. The roots are the secret. A massive system that takes up 2/3 of the tree's total mass. The taproot can be 25 feet deep, and lateral roots can extend about 100 feet. Junipers grow slowly. Older trees, which may be 650 to 850 years old, have sculptured qualities. Even dead, a juniper can stand silent and strong for several hundred years. Like all the plants at this 5,000-foot elevation, the juniper must survive on sparse 10 inches of precipitation a year. It has little berries. But they're not berries. They're pine cones. They're eaten by rabbits, fox, coyote, and many birds. The trail has me now climbing up into this rocky mass that was to my right. So we have another change of elevation. I have reached a divide through this rocky outcropping here, and I'm pointing the camera toward the Green River as it flows here toward the Colorado. Of course, it was very important for the Indians, the Ute and the Fremont Indians, when they lived in the area, and of course the settlers who came here, and now of course to modern day people. And I'm pretty sure the hike will take us in the direction the camera is pointed. I see what looks like a trail right down there. I'm assuming that's our trail, but it might not be. We're beginning our descent now from the ridge. Of course, much more rock to walk on now than what I had been walking on. Says I'm supposed to go this way. I have come to a trail junction. This heads to the group campground called Split Mountain Campground and Desert Voices Trail. But I'm going to stay on the Sound of Silence Trail. Looks like it's got about half a mile to go. In this direction. As I'm hiking back toward the way I came, of course this is the rock formation that I just walked up over top of. I think it came over right through that V right there and down along that way where the trees are, and of course down this way. On this side, red. I have reached a red ridge, and here to my left is a western single leaf ash, as they have one leaf on each stem, unlike other ash trees that have compound leaves. The rock that's underneath us, this red rock, is formed during the chenille period formation, during a time when rivers, marshes, small lakes covered the landscape. All right, and dinosaurs appeared here about 225 million years ago. And the trail heads to the slick rock. Well, I'm now on the slick rock. This is supposed to take me down to another wash. Looks like they're giving me some arrows to follow though. Also going to give me cairns to follow, which are rock piles. C-A-I-R-N-S. I'm pretty sure it's pronounced cairns. Now the trail gets real interesting. Need to carefully pick my way down here. Excuse me. My knee hit the tripod. Yay, I win. Now I'm walking on a very sandy wash. It's like walking on soft desert sand down here at the bottom of this wash. Well, I've come to the portion of the trail that I've already hiked. So it's this way back to the car and the trailhead. And so concludes our 3.2 mile hike through the, what's that called? Sound of Silence Trail. I hope you got something out of it, enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's cool.
What we're looking at here is a dinosaur quarry building, and we'll be going inside to take a look at dinosaur bones in a rock wall. We're inside the quarry building now, and what you are seeing here, this rock wall, was actually the bottom of a river 149 million years ago. And because the Colorado Plateau uplifted, it has been pushed up into an angle of about 60 degrees. So this one time, of course, was horizontal, which is why the bones are located here. The theory is that many of these dinosaurs here died as a result of drought. They came to the river, of course, to find water, and when they didn't find it, many of them died as a result of thirst. That's one of the theories. They don't know. There could be other things that have caused it as well. But we are standing on the upstream side of the quarry, and the river, of course, would flow in this general direction. The bones here of a nearly complete skeleton of a, let me see if I can't pronounce this properly, Camarasaurus, the large plant eater. And you've got backbone in here. The skull should be right in this area right here, but I don't think the skull was found. So those would be the neck bones right in here. And then you have a jumble of bones here. They're all cataloged here, but the leg bones and stuff would be in this region right here. Looks like we have different dinosaur bones from a different dinosaur located in this area here. I did finally find the skull. It is right in the middle of your picture. And then here the neck bones, of course, would be in this direction right here. According to the guide we're looking at here, to find complete skulls is very, very unusual. Usually they are dismembered from the rest of the body and crushed. In front of us here are the bones of an almost complete Stegosaurus. However, they have been broken apart and scattered, but they are all from that same Stegosaurus in this general region right here. But they figured that scavengers and other forces of the river have scattered the bones before the mud and material from the river covered it up and then preserved it in this location. See if I can't zoom in on some of them, give you a look. I don't believe the skull was found. My guess is this is a tailbone. On this part of the wall are the large leg and hip bones of large plant eaters. I think they are referred to as sauropods. And they're, I think, from a number of different dinosaurs. And of course they were washed down the stream bed. So these are leg bones up here. You've got leg bones, and I don't know if they're called hips or not. shoulder bones, they're called, in this region right here. Another one down here. And a skull. So you've got those large leg bones and shoulder bones extending all along this face of the rock, coming to about this region right here. If I can't zoom in on some of those. So move it higher up here on the cliff face. I think they found examples of 10 different types of dinosaurs here, and most of them are plant eaters. The point farthest downstream that we find here on this rock wall is referred to as the log jam. These are bones from different dinosaurs, at least 4 different types, meat eaters and plant eaters, and they are all disjointed, and they have flown down here. They were flowed down here by the river's current, and the theory is they hit some kind of a barrier, a log jam of some type, and they got all piled up here in this general area. So you have all kinds of bones here in different orientations than they would have been, of course, on a live animal. Both large and small dinosaur bones are located in this region. We are now making a trip back down to the visitor center from the quarry along the Fossil Discovery Trail. There's the quarry that we were in, where we saw the bones. And now we're just a little ways on the Fossil Discovery Trail, with the Green River in the distance there. We have come back to the junction. Now we're going to go to the Morrison Formation dinosaur fossils and end up in the visitor center where our car is. So we go down a wash. We're now taking a spur trail. It's supposed to take us to some dinosaur bones in the wall here. Well, we have reached the end of the spur trail. It wasn't very long. And it looks as though there's one large bone right here. This gray material in front of us is shale, and it includes fish scales, fossilized fish scales from about 100 million years ago during the Cretaceous period. It runs all the way up along this ridge. This ridge of sandstone and some limestone is referred to as the Morrison Formation. It got the name because of fossils discovered by Morrison, Colorado. And this is what the paleontologists were looking for when they were looking for Jurassic dinosaur fossils. And this is the Morrison Formation that just up the road is where Douglas found those bones that we saw earlier that are now in that wall of bones. The camera is now pointed at a butte whose name is Elephant Toes Butte. Kind of a unique name there, with the butte sticking up like a leg and then the toes on the bottom sticking out. It's made of sandstone. It's across the creek from the road here. All right, we have reached a rock with petroglyphs on it, formed by the Fremont peoples. They disappeared around 1200 or 1000. Here's some abstract art here. Looks like the sun. Over here, a whirling whirl, whatever that might be.
I see that sheep.
And then right over here we have a bighorn sheep. And below that looks like mountains, ridges of mountains. And of course you always have to have the ever-present man shape. And we have some other abstract art down alongside the rock here. Zoom in a little bit for you there. Again, this is the Fremont people who lived here about 1,000 years ago. Along this rock face we have other petroglyphs. Lizards. I'm not sure what this other formation is supposed to be. But as we go up the stairs here, pardon my jerking around, a much better representation of a lizard, and one again right next to it. And perhaps the most famous petroglyph in the park is this large lizard, pointing to another one with a man standing on top of it. Over here, whoops, we have another human figure. And along the wall here, we have geometric figures. Here, looks like a necklace, a human figure. They're becoming quite faded. Over here, some more geometric figures, mountains, what looks like a smiley face, a whirl on the top, maybe that's the sun or the moon. Perhaps the symbol of a god, perhaps a chief. Just making a guess. Here we have some human figures. And what looks like it might be a face with a necklace, but I do not know for sure. 20th century homestead. Josie Morris made her home here until 1964. So we'll take a look around, see what Josie, how Josie lived. Site number 15 on the road trip. Well, we'll take a walk back in here by Josie's cabin. Of course, they make these bends in here to prevent the cattle from getting through. Looks like she had a pretty nice cabin, at least from the outside. Old homesteads are scattered throughout Dinosaur National Monument, each with a memorial to hope and work hard. Hard work. This cabin and the nearby structures are part of the homestead established by Josie Morris in the early 1900s. During 40 years of age, divorced with her children grown, Josie wanted a home of her own. She chose this spot for its plentiful water and good pasture, the natural resources necessary to grow fruits and vegetables and raise cattle. Family and friends from Vernal often visited. The cabin floors were softened by braided rugs. The beds were warmed with handmade quilts, and Josie's favorite pictures hung on wallpapered walls. In summer, beds of cosmos, marigolds, poppies ringed the cabin. There was always lots of work and never much money, Her life here at Cub Creek suited Josie's independent spirit. She lived in this cabin until shortly before her death in 1964 at age 90. Well, let's go see what that cabin looks like on the inside, if they allow us in. Well, the doors are open, so I guess we can walk in. Just a small room, maybe a bedroom. Making a guess, of course. Ah, this must be the parlor. Oh, another door. 3 doors. Separate door coming into this room. Looks like she added on a couple of times, thus all the doors. I'm surprised with all the doors. It would certainly make it colder. Maybe this was the original part of the cabin and she added on 2 or 3 other times. Making a guess, of course. And here we have a chicken coop. She raised what, Bonnie?
Cattle, pigs, chickens, and geese.
Yeah, so the chickens and geese might have been kept here. Probably the chickens more so than the geese. We got rock formations up above. Got a box elder tree here. And right behind us is the spring. A real unique aspect of her condition here dealt with water right laws. The law was that when you have a spring or a tributary flowing into a larger one, no one could take the water from the higher tributary, in this case the spring, because that water belonged to the land below. So what Josie did to get around that, the law said surface water. So flowing into another larger stream. So what she did is she dammed up the spring to prevent the water from flowing into the creek below. Thus she could use the water because none of it flowed into a larger stream. And these are her ponds. It looks like that they're all just wetlands now below, where she was able to dam up the spring and thus prevent it from flowing into a larger creek, and then she was able then to use the spring water. Here is the spring on Josie's land. They got diverted here by a channel. It's running in 2 directions. There's a channel running over toward the cabin and one here downhill to those ponds I talked about earlier. Spring is flowing quite well. We're beginning our trek back into the box canyon where Josie oftentimes kept her animals. It's significant difference walking here into the shade from out in the sun. A lot of trees here. Yeah, this is nice right here. Right, this is where the entrance to the box canyon begins, here on the right. And what Josie did was built these fences across the front of this box canyon over to the other wall. So all she needed was a little bit of fencing to keep her cattle inside this box canyon, because the walls of the canyon, of course, act as a barrier. Here we can see the influence of the spring running underneath the land right here. This vegetation here would not be here without that underwater flowing through here, that water flowing underneath here. Walls of the canyon on the right. Swinging around here. And walls of the canyon on the left. Lots of trees. And here's the back side of that box canyon. It's not very long. Certainly a good place to keep cattle in. It's now May 31st, 2018, and we have come to the end of our Utah vacation. We'll be leaving Dinosaur National Monument and have decided to drive north into Wyoming and come back on I-80 to Wisconsin. Get Bonnie going here, and we can get going.